Let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Dilanian, and also with us former federal prosecutor Barrett Berger. Ken, help us understand what the DOJ is asking for here.
This is an incredible thing, Anna. They're essentially asking to wipe away these convictions so that it's almost as if it never happened. And they're not explaining to the public why they want to do this, what was wrong with these prosecutions, because these people were convicted by juries after mountains of evidence that they conspired to try to stop the certification of the votes that day. And the Justice Department didn't do this lightly. There were high-level meetings about whether to bring this serious charge of seditious conspiracy. It went all the way up to the Attorney General. And they did it sparingly, only in these particular cases. We're talking about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And the leaders of those organizations weren't even on scene in January 6th, but there was a lot of evidence showing that they were communicating and conspiring. And Donald Trump, as you said, did not actually pardon those people, which suggested that even he didn't want to go quite that far. But now they want to wipe these convictions away. It's really amazing.
So how could they do this, Barrett? I guess the president could still pardon them, but that's not what they're doing here. They're going to the court to ask for the courts to wipe out the convictions. Is the court likely to go along with this request? Barrett, we can't hear you. Double check your mute button.
Sorry about that.
We got you now.
Great. Yes, ultimately, I think the court will go along with this. The Department of Justice does have a good deal of discretion about what charges to bring, what charges to pursue, and quite frankly, we want DOJ to have that discretion. We want them to have the ability, if they find a conviction that's wrong or new evidence comes in, to appeal to the court and to say, actually, we got this one wrong. Here, what's so interesting about this one and what makes it so unusual is that the president could have pardoned these people right off the bat. When he first got reelected and issued those, 1,500 some pardons, they specifically carved out these people, the ones convicted of seditious conspiracy, and only commuted their sentence, didn't pardon them. So exactly as Ken was saying, it's unclear what's changed now, what makes them take this really extraordinary step of going to the court to ask the court to dismiss these charges, as opposed to just having them pardoned right off the bat.
And Ken, looking at the DOJ as a whole, there are some new eyebrow-raising comments from the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, discussing openly the president's push on the Justice Department to go after certain people.
Yeah, and he's really repeating what he said to us at the press corps at a news conference a few weeks ago, where he said that Donald Trump has a right and a duty to tell the Department of Justice who to investigate. Todd Blanche was a federal prosecutor. He knows that that is never the way the Justice Department has worked, particularly in the 50 years post-Watergate. The idea is that a president who is a politician should not direct an independent DOJ to investigate someone criminally. That just doesn't look right. It suggests that the thumb is on the scales. And Todd Blanche is saying that's perfectly fine because Donald Trump knows a lot about a lot, and so it's okay for him to direct the DOJ. And what we're seeing is he's directing the DOJ to mount investigations with very little evidence against his political enemies, and that is a really bad place for American democracy.
Yeah, Barrett, let me read some from the NBC reporting, which did an interview just in the last couple of days with Blanche, in which they brought up the president's post directing then Attorney General Pam Bondi to go after these perceived political enemies. And he says, quote, that type of communication from President Trump should make every American happy. Listen.
Yeah, I mean,
so he is somebody who has high expectations for his cabinet and for this administration. It's not just the Department of Justice, it's in every single area. And so that type of communication from President Trump should make every American happy, because it means that there's an executive, a chief executive, that is making sure every one of his cabinet members are working as hard as they should.
Barrett, your response to that?
I mean, it is a good thing for the Department of Justice to want to be working hard, and certainly the president has the authority to set general policy that he wants the Department of Justice to follow. Presidents can say, we want to take, this crime more seriously. We want to put our resources to this. What they have not had the authority to do, exactly as Ken said, in the post-Watergate era, is direct who the Department of Justice should prosecute individually, which charges should be dropped against individual defendants. Todd Blanche knows that. He understands. He came from the Southern District of New York, which prides itself on its independence, prides itself on being politically neutral. And the fact that he's now welcoming and inviting the president's involvement really sounds like a interview that he's doing for the job of Attorney General, rather than setting forth traditional norms of what a federal prosecutor should know and believe.
Yeah, there's so much more I want to ask. This is a conversation to be continued as we continue to cover the actions of the Justice Department. Barrett Berger, Ken Dilanian.